Hi, I'm Neal Ronaghan, and welcome to another episode of Nintendo World Rapport. With me today is Nintendo World Report's, drumroll please, news editor. That's a new thing. I mean, not that the role isn't new necessarily, just the fact that Donald Theriault is our news editor. That is a new thing. So, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And now I got to go update my Twitter profile after we're done.
Yeah, so for people who haven't seen the three previous episodes of Nintendo World Rapport, I will briefly fill you on what the hell this is. It's a show here on Nintendo World Report TV, NWRTV for short, if you're cool. You can subscribe to us, all that jazz, but this is a show that will happen hopefully every Sunday night where I talk to other people from the staff about their secret origins and what they're doing and stuff like that, and also people from the industry. Last week we had the dudes who are making Runbow join us. Next week we're gonna have Renegade Kids Jules Watson, and we're probably gonna like alternate that every other week. So you'll get your NWR staff love, and then your like Wii U 3DS indie developer love. It'll be real fun.
Yeah.
So Donald, as news editor, what do you do here at Nintendo World Report?
Basically my job involves keeping an eye on the internet all day to see and trying to see if we can break any stories that are relevant to Nintendo. Like, I was the person who was madly refreshing Axis's Twitch stream on Friday that never came up for the Zero Escape 3 announcement, for instance.
Yeah.
And
wait, so that actually never came up?
They never got it. They did eventually upload the video that they had to YouTube, but there were some challenges with that panel, and they kind of had to rush through a lot. Like, they burned through about 5 game announcements in 3 minutes.
Yeah, I saw they had a bunch of like eShop games and stuff, because I was around when that was supposed to start, and then wound up going to do other things because I'm not so secretly. I was really bored by 999. I tried, man. I really tried.
Yeah, I think did you ever beat it at all?
No, I did not. I legit, like, the first time I played it, I was a little sleepy and I fell asleep, and then other times I was not sleepy and I fell asleep. And I think it was just that, like, it's weird because, like, I love the shit out of Danganronpa. Like, and I know they're not in the same game, but they're similar in style and tone from what I've gathered. But just, and I think a little bit that hurt me on 999 as well is that there's a certain jankiness to that game, and like trying to go through it,
right?
Which there's a part of me that wanted to just play Virtue's Last Reward because that seemed a little more user friendly as far as like replaying it and seeing the different endings. But then every time I mentioned that to someone, they would slap me across the face and be like, "If you're gonna play them, you gotta play the first one first." Which you're probably right.
Yeah, like, because there's several reveals in Virtue's Last Reward that do not make any sense at all unless you have played and seen everything in 999.
Yeah.
So I was over the moon for that announcement. It's become my number 1 or 2 most anticipated game of next year. But I can understand if you didn't get into the first one, you're probably wondering what the heck I'm on.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, really into Danganronpa. I totally get the appeal for those type of games, but it just didn't click with me. And I don't know if I'm done trying, but definitely, probably until the fervor for Zero Escape 3, when it does come out next year, maybe I'll try again. I don't think I ever got rid of my copy of 999, so it's still there, and I have Virtue's Last Reward on PS Plus on my Vita, so it's there. But anyway, Twitch streams covering stuff for a Nintendo World Report.
Yeah.
What has been, I guess, like, what's it been like? Well, let's go to your secret origin, as it were. How did you get to the point where you were writing news for a Nintendo website?
Well, I've been pretty much a Nintendo fan since I was 5 years old. Got my NES for Christmas that year. I did some FAQ writing in the early 2000s, and I almost had a job with Versus Books. Unfortunately, It was for Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, and Versus Books went under just before that game went gold. So I was basically floating around the internet. I have a GameFAQs account that dates back to 2000, and eventually I was looking for Nintendo podcasts on iTunes, and I found RFN. So I was listening to that. I joined up in the forums, or it was a semi regular for a couple of years. 1 week RFN took a week off, so I got together with Austin and Steven, aka Brood Wars, and Sarek on the forums, and we did a pilot for what ended up becoming Nintendo Free Radio, sort of the forum podcast that still runs to this day. Actually, I taped it right before we did this show, and eventually I started writing for a website called Pocket Console, which covers 3DS and Vita. And you actually contact me and say, hey, do you want to come on with NWR? I said yes. After some personal drama happened, I came on in March. And there was a pretty big gap in the news portion of it, the day-to-day news operations. Like there was times where like the downloads article that realistically should go up on a Thursday was going up on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I guess news editor might be our defense against the dark arts role right now. So Donald, it was nice knowing you. Bye. Yeah, because I was actually I was news editor on the site many moons ago. I guess what year is it? Holy shit! I was news editor about 6 years ago. Holy shit! Wow. Okay. Yeah. 6 years ago was when I was news editor. And since then, I mean, then I was like I think I was like a senior editor for a while, and then I became director in 2011. And I think we've had a couple people in that role, and none of them ever lasted too long. Our most recent one, we had Alex Osborne, who was news editor for a hot minute. He's freelancing pretty regularly, writing the news over at IGN, so that's pretty cool. And then like Patrick Barnett, who he was news editor for a while, but then I think he actually just finished. He graduated college,
right.
But he was in like some like engineering intensive program thing, so he didn't have the time for it anymore. And it really has been. I mean, for people who've been following the site, you probably noticed that our news coverage, understandably, since Donald's joined, has improved a lot. But for a while, it would be kind of that gap that would be hard to fill, because as also some of you might know, some of you might not know, we're all volunteers, so most of us all have jobs during the day, except for there are some of us who have jobs during the day and somehow are able to do a lot for the site during the day. Wink, wink, don't tell our bosses. But yeah, so it's been wonderful having you here writing the news. It's great because I can actually go to our own website when like I'm away from the computer and I see breaking news, and then I go to our website to read the news as opposed to like going to GAF. Like that's a wonderful thing. Even if you're going to GAF to get the news and then write about it for the website, because as we probably all know, NeoGAF is where the video game industry happens.
Yeah. It frequently comes to GAF, Internet GAF, and well, NeoGAF happens to be one of the few sites that I can actually get to at work that are video game related. Don't tell my bosses.
Yeah. My company wised up to that at some point, but it was weird because it was like their filter blocked GAF, but now I can access my personal email. So win some, you lose some, I guess.
Yeah. Same thing happened to me actually. I'll send you something after the show.
What else? I'm right now. I'm looking at our lovely news coverage. Here's a recent story that would be fun to talk about. Well, actually, before we get there, I'm getting ahead of myself. This FAQ writing. Can anybody still find your walkthroughs out on the web? Because you said I guess they might be on Game FAQs, right?
Yeah, they're on Game FAQs. I'm just there as Donald. I've written for Earthbound and a lot of Pokemon stuff. But I haven't, aside from a couple of smaller files, I haven't really done it regularly since, like I said, early 2000s.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people kind of burnt out on doing those. Like, I was always, I think I might actually have a Game FAQs account dating back to like early 2000s, maybe in late 90s, but I never did any FAQ writing.
Yeah.
Let's see, I found dated December 21st, 2000 by a Donald on Earthbound, an FAQ walkthrough. Let's see.
Yeah, Earthbound, the most redundant game in history to write an FAQ for, because it came with the freaking strategy guide, and that's a PDF now.
Welcome, one and all. My name is Donald, and I'll be your tour guide through this wonderful world of Earthbound for the Super Nintendo. I'm gonna post this for the world.
There will be more of that, more talk of me and Earthbound in the weeks ahead. We've got some plans for that are afoot.
Hold on. Live tweet.
and now I'm just sitting on there in TweetDeck. Oh, there it is.
No, I actually I've been thinking about going through Earthbound with a guide, just because, like, I mean, the only time I finished that game was probably it was with an emulator. I think early 2000s, but I played through it and didn't really know what the hell it was doing, and I think I might have been playing a version that had, like, how they have that weird piracy thing.
Right. So you got the extra random encounters. Yeah. Although if you were playing it that way, I think it would have fried the save files at the end of the game. So
yeah, that's what I think. I remember that happening. I think I remember downloading a save, because I remember getting that point, getting really pissed off, and then I talked to a friend of mine, and he was telling me, and like I was telling him how hard it was, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And then we looked it up, and then that's how we found out about, like, the ridiculous, like, restrictions or, like, countermeasures on Earthbound, which is really brilliant. But me as a 12-year-old trying to play games on my computer, that did not really help.
Indeed. Although I maybe shouldn't confess this on a Nintendo World Report show, but because of game FAQs, there was a bit of a time when I was actually boycotting Planet GameCube.
What? I know isn't there some kind of long-running thing where Game FAQs hates PGC for some reason?
I think it was because there were, in the early 2000s, when Game FAQ started having their character battles every year, and Planet GameCube put up an article saying "Go vote for Mario," and I think I had his opponent in the pool trying to win a gift card for getting a perfect bracket. So it's like, you guys are taking money out of my pocket. What are you doing? And it didn't connect with me that Nintendo World Report was Planet GameCube until I went back and listened to the old RFNs.
Yeah, because the old RFNs would have, but I think it might have been 6 months before the name change happened.
Right.
The RFN started, June 2006, and then the name change happened right around the Wii launch.
Right, yeah, because the podcast started, it was an E3 inspired thing.
Yep.
With Evan and Mike, and then you change the name from Planet GameCube when the GameCube is basically dead.
Yeah. And fun fact, Game Trailer's Dan Bloodworth, formerly of PGC and NWR, he came up with the name Nintendo World Report. So, thanks, Blood.
Blood.
Yeah, Blood's a wonderful person. That is 100% the reason why Johnny and I were on GT Live back at E3, which that was a lot of fun. What else is going on? Dragon Quest 6 or no, Dragon Quest 7 and 8. So what's this? You wrote this story here on Nintendo Report with a headline of Dragon Quest 7 and 8 French release confirmed at Japan Expo. So you said you had a theory on this. What's going on with this?
Okay. So basically what happened was Yuji Horii was speaking at Paris's Japan Expo, which is a big anime and games show that they have every year in Paris. And at the end of the conference, without, I think, even with the translator knowing, he said that Dragon Quest 7 and 8 3DS would be playable in French at some point. So that means they're going to have to localize it. Now, I don't know if it's a legal requirement or not that if you localize a game in one of the main European languages, you do it for all of them.
Yeah, if you got to do e-figs.
Yeah, because if you've got to do e-figs, that means it's going to come out in Europe, and at that point, it seems to be a pretty simple switch to say just flip the region to North America and even post it digitally on the eShop.
Although, and the interesting thing with that is, with Yuji Horii kind of spilling the beans, we don't know whether it's coming from Square or if Nintendo's involved.
Right. I think Square might be handling this, though, because I don't think Nintendo is going to publish I don't know how willing Nintendo would be to publish a game that could be promoting something on another platform, because Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2 are in the wild. Dragon Quest Heroes comes out this fall on PS4, and we don't know where Dragon Quest 11 is going to end up, whether it's going to be 3DS, PS4, or Extreme.
I think also in that same thing, I think Yuji Horii made a comment that it's going to be coming to home consoles.
It's going to be coming. It's an offline home console game, but
yeah.
Square has indicated in the past that they consider the 3DS and Vita as part of home consoles. So
okay,
who knows?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the delineation between like mobile and console.
Right.
I think, unfortunately, I guess not unfortunately, considering that most of us at least have a Vita on staff. I think that Dragon Quest might be going over back to Sony. I think Nintendo and Square had their fun, with a really big high with Dragon Quest IX, which is perfect on the DS.
Right. And
Dragon Quest X seemed to underwhelm, and especially with Nintendo's unwillingness of bringing the other more recent Dragon Quest games overseas, which not that that's totally dependent on Nintendo, but I think that part of the reason why Square probably shacked up with them was that they could have that help with bringing those games overseas. And it's weird because Nintendo's still working with Square,
right?
Like, you still have Bravely Default, Bravely Second, but I think the big secret there is that Bravely Default beat expectations. Dragon Quest VI and Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2, I think those both bombed hard.
Yeah. How much of that was timing? Because, they couldn't bring out 6 until after 9 launched, and there was about a year lag between those. But Dragon Quest VI, it came out about a month before the 3DS did.
Yeah.
And unless you're called Pokemon, you're not going to do a bloody thing on the DS, a system that was pretty much going out and had already been hacked to pieces as far as security goes.
Yeah.
Same thing with Monsters, especially where the kind of people who had bought that game, they knew there was an enhanced version in Japan, so it's like, why aren't we getting that one?
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's also, because Dragon Quest VI was, I think it was around, because we got like a "Will You Be My Valentine" Slime shirt when we got the review copy. So it was, I think, Valentine's Day 2011.
Right.
It was around when that came out. And it's also weird because that was a time where we got a couple other games, and I think Dragon Quest VI, which kind of weird that it was the Nintendo published game that seemed to flop hard, but like Radiant Historia came out around that time, and somehow Atlas just has that magic touch where they know they are very in touch with what their audience wants and what their demands are, or they undershoot it, like I think they did do with Radiant Historia, and then that was really hard to find, and then they did a second printing.
Yeah. So,
I want to know what the hell Atlas is doing, because they're releasing the most niche shit, and they're doing fine.
They're doing fine, but their expectations are lower. Like, I think they were happy that Devil Survivor 2 Record Breaker did what it did in North America, but they probably didn't have very, very high expectations. Now, how they can afford to do things like full voice acting in their names, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
But you have these companies like Atlas, Xseed, Axis, who, and even NIS America, who will go to the wall for their games. Like, they'll print stuff on the Vita physically, and Sony's not even willing to do that.
Yeah. And then it kind of sucks with Dragon Quest, because I didn't really start loving the series until, I think I reviewed Dragon Quest V for Nintendo World Report back, I guess it would have been, 08, 09? And that was the first one that I had played through since, I had played Dragon Quest Monsters on the Game Boy, and I had the original on NES. Somehow I played through the original, despite not really liking it that much. It was just like that age where I could this isn't that good, but I got all day to kill. And I love Dragon Quest Monsters because it was Pokemon, and Pokemon was my world in 1998, or whenever that game came out.
As was most of the young teenage male population at that point.
It's very true. And then Dragon Quest V blew my mind, and then I played 4, played 9, loved 9, and just kind of fell in love with that universe. I love all the Platypunks and all the slimes and all that stuff. It's just such a fun, charming universe. Although I did play a demo of Dragon Quest Warriors, or what is it? It's Dragon Quest Heroes, right?
Right.
I played a demo of that at E3 and was kind of underwhelmed because it seemed to be like, whereas Hyrule Warriors is like just dumb and fun and you're just beating hordes of enemies, it seems like Dragon Quest Heroes is trying to be more of like an action game with like puzzles and sense. And when I kind of when I look to a Dynasty Warrior style game, I don't really want it to make sense. I just want dope shit to happen.
Yeah, I want Dragon Quest to do well, but for various reasons, I don't see myself getting a PS4 anytime soon. So it's going to be a shame that I'm going to miss out on Heroes until it's probably $20 somewhere.
I think I'm at a point though where I'll probably blindly buy Dragon Quest Heroes when it comes out because I just want to be like, yes, bring out all the Dragon Quest stuff. I'll buy all of it. I don't care anymore. Whatever scraps you bring me. I'm actually waiting on a copy of Theater Rhythm Dragon Quest that I imported on PlayAsia because I think if you do have a Japanese 3DS for some reason, I think you can still get it for like $13 on PlayAsia. So you should check it out. Even though I kind of heard mixed things about that, I feel like the Dragon Quest music isn't quite as memorable as Final Fantasies.
Yeah, the only really memorable Dragon Quest 2 I know is the level up music.
Yeah, and then like there's some nice themes. Like that's one of the things I love about Fortune Street is that it's got wonderful Dragon Quest music. Like some of the stuff from 9 especially that's used in some of those maps. It's wonderful.
I still have to play that because I actually managed to find it in a drugstore at my parents' house, which is in the middle of really nowhere, for $20 last Christmas. So I should probably play that. I just don't have anyone to play it with right
now. Yeah, and well, you could play it on. Oh, no more Nintendo Wi-Fi connection.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, and I think that, and I got that in Rhythm Heaven Fever. I think it was like some deal like the cut 6 months after they both flopped, where I got them for like $10 or $15 each. And I still Rhythm Heaven Fever, although I have played Rhythm Heaven Fever. My copy of that's still in the shrink wrap from when I got it then because I think it was like the review copy. This is back in the day when we got physical review copies more often, and that was one where like it came in and then I just played it that night and beat it, and then sent it off to whoever was reviewing it. And then Fortune Street, it was a while before I played it, and it was just one night where me, my wife, and like a friend or two were just kind of bored, and we're like, how about we try this game? And then we just became kind of obsessed with it. It's a lot of fun if you have the right people.
I think my usual group would be pretty down for it, but I'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
Yeah. So before the show, you mentioned something about that you're participating in JRPG July.
Yeah, it didn't start out that way, but once it sort of picked up, I'm kind of running with it. So I finally got my copy of Xenoblade Chronicles 3D because I've been meaning to get that for months. Around the time I would have gotten it, I got Record Breaker in for a review. So not only did I not have time to play Xenoblade, but it also took up the memory card space on my 3DS, so I have to buy a 128 in the next couple of weeks to fit all the games that I've got on my 3DS on.
I've somehow managed that I only have a 32, and I've been cleaning the fridge with it. But like I like that you can then like keep the save data because like after I was done Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, I ended up keeping the save data and then deleted it off my system. So I do have, standard stuff for multiplayer and all that jazz and like things that like I kind of want to have on standby. But then I have some of the bigger stuff like, a lot of those Atlas games, Xenoblade. I'm trying to Monster Hunter. No, I think I still have Monster Hunter installed.
Yeah.
But I keep it. I'm usually near capacity at all times, but for some weird reason, I've been sticking with the 32 and it's not that bad.
Yeah. I have the 64 because I'm a hoarder. I don't want a fridge clean. I just want to be able to have anything on me at all times, which is why I sort of have a love-hate relationship with my Vita because everything on there is the size of Xenoblade and I have to clean all the time. But
my Vita, I don't even have, what is it? Because I think I have a 16 and not a 32 right? Because was the 16 kind of like the second from the highest that was actually sold in America?
Right. It topped out at 32, and of course those are $80 now. But I snapped and imported the 64 from Japan about 6 months after I got my Vita, and I'm still running. I have like 3 times that memory card's capacity.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I haven't bothered with getting a bigger one on Vita, because I kind of realized that like even if I got a 64, I still wouldn't be able to keep everything on it.
Yeah.
So I've just gotten to the point where like I'll have, I have like Spelunky and Dive Kick are always on there, and then I have like, I can keep 1 or 2 bigger RPGs. I've had Persona 4 Golden on there since I bought it on a sale like 2 years ago and still haven't really dove into it. But I just kind of cycle out like the games that I'm actually playing, although I haven't touched my Vita in a while. I download the PS Plus games on it, and then it just kind of goes back in its shell as I wait for free time.
Yeah, I'm waiting for like Lost Dimensions at the end of the month from Atlas, but right now I'm playing Xenoblade, and I'm about I just got through the first dungeon and all the fun that ensued from that, but I'm trying to get back to where I was because I put about 20-25 hours in on the Wii, and then various things happened that I picked up other games and just never got back to it. But even what I played was good enough to be my game of the year in 2012.
That's where I was with that game. Although my Weave save file suffered a much more tragic fate in that I was about 20-25 hours into it, and then my system died, and I lost my save file.
Ooh.
And the worst thing about that epic Wii crashing and losing my save file is that I got some kind of issue that was like I forget exactly what it was, because I mean it was shortly after Xenoblade came out, but it was something that it was like it gave me a warning sign that it was like looked up online and was like, okay, I got to send it in, but I have to copy all my save files to an SD card so that way I don't lose them all. And I started the process and then like went to go eat dinner and then came back and then my system was completely bricked. So I got a few save files off it, but like Xenoblade was like literally the next one that I was going to do.
Oh.
And when I realized that, I was like, oh man. And then so when they announced the 3DS one, I was stoked because I did want to play through that game again.
Yeah.
And as was proven by the fact that I actually went almost all the way through it. Like I played way more of that game on 3DS than I probably ever would have played on Wii.
Yeah, having it portably, being able to jump in when there's nothing else going on, that's going to be huge for me.
Yeah, even if it looks like horrible butt on the new 3DS.
The funny thing is, when I played Xenoblade, I played it on a CRT TV. So I only know this game looking like that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like the kind of thing where like I don't really mind it. Like it's a thing. Like I definitely like when I reviewed the new 3DS version, like it's something I'm gonna comment on. But like when it kind of comes down to it, it's like it doesn't matter what this game looks like. It runs fine, and like the story's absurd. The combat's way more interesting than I kind of expected at first. The characters are awesome. It's just a really fun game.
Yeah. So the other thing I'm playing right now that's in the JRPG vein is I'm playing through Earthbound Beginnings. I've played a little bit of it on emulator back when that was the only way to do it. But this is the first time I'm actually going to sit down and see if I can power through and actually beat that game. From what I've heard, it's going to be very long and very frustrating.
Very grindy.
Yep, but I am. If there's one thing I'll be doing a lot of this month, it's grinding.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be that's like spirit of the season.
Yeah,
JRPG July means you're going to be doing some grinding.
Yeah, I also want to get into. I'm looking to pick up a PS3 in the next week to 10 days as well, because I made a pledge at the start of the year that I would roll credits on a Tales game before the end of the year, and I've lost a lot of time from Move Drama costing me the PS3 I had. So I'll get that, and I'll get back to Tales of Symphonia.
I think that's Symphonia is the only one I ever beat. That's a weird game.
All the Tales games are weird, but I feel like I need to have that part of my RPG resume filled in at least somehow.
Yeah, like I got was it Tales of the Abyss came out on 3DS kind of early on in its lifespan, and when I got a couple hours into that and then realized I don't know if I ever want to play a Tales game again. Like they're all like there are differences in them, and I played a little bit of a couple of them, but it's just like it's all so similar that when I was playing Tales of the Abyss, and like I played Symphonia and some other ones that I can't even remember the name of, and I couldn't remember what was from which game because they all kind of bled together.
Yeah.
Like the only way that I could kind of separate some of them is I'm like, okay, that one was on PS3 and that one was on GameCube. Like that's the only way it was possible.
And I got about 4 or 5 game deep Tales backlog just on the PS3. And I tried Abyss, but I just found the characters to be totally unlikable.
Yeah.
So at least with Symphonia, I don't want to punch all the characters in the face.
But you want to punch some of them in the face, though.
There's a couple, but it's not the whole cast so far.
I think what is it, Lloyd? Lloyd's kind of a tool.
Yeah, but
there's the one, oh God, what are the characters' names in that game?
Lloyd. Yeah, it's been so long. I've completely missed.
And then there's like that weird Wii sequel that was one that I played a little bit of and couldn't really get into.
I was warned not to buy that game when I bought the HD collection, and thankfully Namco obliged and put them up separately.
Oh yeah, and then there's Genus Sage and Kratos. Kratos was cool.
Kratos on the GameCube before he comes to the PlayStation and becomes a
mascot. That's probably one of the better Tales games, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, that seems to be the one for beginners anyway, or people who are new to the series. Because I remember watching a friend play through most of Tales of Destiny, but then he got stuck on this like Zodiac door puzzle for 3 weeks, and it's like, yeah, he punted it and haven't really recovered.
Yeah, now talking to you, I might be inspired to. Because I've been having this JRPG itch, but I haven't quite scratched it yet. All I've done is just played a lot more Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy recently.
Yeah. I think you may want to go through Persona.
I should probably do that.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking, like I do kind of. I haven't played through Chrono Trigger all the way through in 10 years, maybe.
Oh, okay.
And I did
through it. This call was over.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is 20th anniversary and all, and I've been getting kind of nostalgic for Chrono Trigger. And with that, I did buy the DS game and played a little bit of time, and then wound up lending it to a friend, and then my friend lost it. But then claimed that he didn't lose it. Like, whatever, dude. Like, I know who I lent that game to, and it was you. That's the last time I ever saw it. But he's like, I don't know where it is. I think I gave it back to you.
Yeah. I'd say your best bet at this point would probably you're gonna have to boot into Wii mode, unfortunately. But I would go get the Super Nintendo.
I craved, and for my birthday this year, as a gift to myself, I spent the $20 to buy a new copy of it on Amazon of the DS version.
Good call.
And I've been going through my old games, and I did crack out my Super Nintendo copy of Chrono Trigger, which I don't know if I'm actually kicking myself too much, at least. Not that I ever bought any of my old games, back in the day as investments, but there was a distinct moment in like the early 2000s where I wanted to buy. I was looking at Chrono Trigger or Earthbound, and at the time, both like eBay auctions for both of them were going for like $40-50.
Yeah.
And I wound up buying Chrono Trigger, and if I bought Earthbound, could have sold that shit for $300 more than I paid for it.
Yeah.
With Chrono Trigger, it's actually apparently that's still going for around $100 for a cartridge.
Right, cartridge with box and manual. That'll probably get you to 3 figures. But between the PS1 and that short-lived Wii re-release and the DS version, it's a little easier to get a hold of than it was in Earthbound.
But still, I mean, it's just the Super Nintendo market in general has skyrocketed so much. Because I was kind of I'm kind of cataloging all my old games and also kind of looking up to see if there's any like one that I have that's like for some reason worth $80. Like for example, the Adventures of Batman and Robin on Super Nintendo. That was a game I got. I think it might have actually been on eBay for less than $10, and that's apparently selling on eBay right now for close to $80. So
just cartridge or
just cartridge.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do some digging through and see what I'll
send you a link to the one website that I found that it's kind of it like aggregates like what's actually selling on like eBay, on Amazon, and half.com.
Yeah.
So it just kind of gives you a rough estimate of what it is. And I actually Found out that my wife at a yard sale a couple years ago found a bunch of games that are well, they're all in box with, it looks like, all the manuals. A couple of them are still sealed. Like there's a copy of Gauntlet 2 that's sealed and in really good condition. That she basically, it's probably like 10 to 15 games that all have their boxes. Final Fantasy is one of them. It coming with, like, I mean, like, the box is open, but it's got everything in there. And she got these at a yard sale for all 15 games for about $5. Like pristine condition. Like, this is, I mean, it sucks because that world where you can go to a yard sale and stumble upon all those games, like, that's kind of dying.
Yeah.
Because I had a yard sale in my town last month, and while we were setting up, like, we set up like right when, like, it was yard sale weekend, so we set up like right as it was all, like, the day was starting, and we had 4 guys come to us within the first half an hour asking if we had any video games. And that's also what motivated me a little bit to see what I got and see what it's worth, because I haven't touched a lot of my old games, so there's a part of me that's just like, I should probably unload some of it. It's all just sitting, like, I'd rather, even if it's someone who just wants to, like, you know, put it in a box and frame it or whatever, like, all these are, like, I got a lot of them from my parents. They've just been sitting in my childhood bedroom untouched since like 2006.
Yeah. I've thought about doing that with some of my Super Nintendo games, but if I did that, I'm pretty sure my brother would kill me, because technically he bought most of these and I just inherited them.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with a lot of my Genesis games. I was actually, because I lent my Genesis games to my brother, for, like, him to play with his kid, and then I asked, I was like, "Oh, can I get them back?" And he's like, "Are you going to sell them?" I'm like, "I'm going to see how much they're worth. Like, if I sell a game, I'm going to run it by you. Don't worry."
You wouldn't do it?
No. I have the Genesis games here. I mean, most of the Genesis games are mine. It's just that was the system. Like, I mean, he's a couple years older than me, and he bought our original Genesis with his own money back in like 1991 or whatever. Although that was a Genesis one that has since stopped working. But me and him, I guess it would have been like 96, 97. We went to like a Toys R Us and bought 3 of the little Genesis 3s for $20 each, because that was like, I think he was close to going to college. So we basically were just like, well, they're really cheap, so let's just get them. And so we have a bunch of Genesis 3s.
Yeah, I think I still have my 92 vintage Super Nintendo in the same box with the games and all that. I don't let systems go very often unless I'm like upgrading 3DSs or DSs or whatever.
See, at this point, I'm kind of lost with what systems I even have, because, like, I've had original systems die, like, and also with the fact that, like, both my brother and I were into games, and around the time when I kind of, I guess, collected, if that was, I mean, a lot of it was me being young and wanting to play games, so I'd go to Funko Land and buy a bunch of games. But, like, that was like late 90s, early 2000s was when I would be going to Funko Land a lot. My brother was in college, so we have, like, between the two of us, like, we each have an N64, and I think that he might have, like, traded a copy of RC Pro-Am to a friend of his for another N64, and then, like, I have my cousin's old NES, but then, like, my cousin does a lot of, like, thrifting and stuff like that, so he found an NES for $1. That sort of works. And then, like, I got a top loader. I have one of the second-gen Super Nintendos that I found at a garage sale. And then I have a Super Nintendo. I didn't actually own a Super Nintendo when I was younger, so it was later. Yeah. And I think, and then when my wife and I got married, she had a top-loading NES and a regular NES. So I don't even know what the shit I have anymore. That's where I'm at. I'm just bleeding consoles.
I'm surprised they're not stacked up behind you there.
Well, actually, I mean, the funny thing is that I do have photo boxes of games right next to me. See, it's Super Nintendo games. There's Joe and Mac, Illusion of Gaia.
Oh, where's that on Virtual Console? We're getting rarities, but, well, that's another
Damn
story.
You, Equinox. Yeah, Illusion of Gaia. I actually, I went to a game convention last week, and the twins from Third Rate Minion, who, I mean, people who are watching might know them. They won't even be watching, so hi, Alex and Tony, if either of you are watching. We've been kind of keeping an eye out for Soul Blazer for a reasonable price, but I don't know if Soul Blazer exists at a reasonable price anymore.
Chances are, if NX published it back in the day, it's worth too much money.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the cheapest I've ever seen Soul Blazer is for like $55-$60.
Yeah.
I got the copy of Illusion of Gaia for $15 last year.
Nice. But you'd think, because NX was the one who bought Square when that merger happened, you'd think the NX games would be the ones getting pushed. But
yeah, and it's weird because some of them have come out. Like, I mean, we got ActRaiser on Wii Virtual Console.
Yeah, but we never got it on Wii U, and we haven't got EVO, Mischief Maker. Now that the N64 is a thing.
Yeah, man, Mischief Makers that's a good game.
I've always wanted to play it, but I never saw it anywhere. So.
I'm trying to think of when I got that. I think that might have been like a GameStop find when they were getting rid of N64 games.
And now they're getting back into N64 games.
I mean, like, I think I remember reading an article about the whole GameStop getting into retro games. That they're like, that's what I used to do a lot when I was younger. Is that I would go to the Funko Lands and the Software Etceteras and the Babbages near me and just see what they had. Whereas now it's like, I mean, part of it's even now it's still kind of ruined because you have the online stuff, which is arguably better. But I would like there was a Funko Land that would always be the holder of treasures. That like it was like right next to like a Walmart or something. So it always bugged my mom to go to this Walmart so that way I could go to the Funko Land. I know that Funko Land's just a shitty GameStop. It doesn't have anything special anymore.
Yeah. I think my biggest regret from when I was younger was I saw, the $20 copy of Earthbound because I traded that game with someone for Killer Instinct who then left town. Ooh. So I have Killer Instinct, but I don't have the cartridge copy of Earthbound, and I really wanted to play that game legitimately, but I couldn't do it until the day it came out on Virtual Console.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some of my other bonehead things. I sold a copy of Final Fantasy II on Super Nintendo for like dirt cheap to somebody because I played through and was just like, well, I don't need it anymore. And I did the same thing with my copy of Illusion of Gaia, but then I bought that back last year for what I think was a pretty good price at $15. But then I have like I feel like a lot of my shitty stories balance out with good ones. Like I had a friend of mine in high school. I was talking to him about games, and he's like, "I got a bunch of Super Nintendo games." So I go over, like we were on the same bus and stuff. So I went over his house after school, and he's got pristine copies of like Super Mario RPG, the Super Mario All Stars plus World, like every Donkey Kong Country game. I'm trying to think if there were any other like kind of steals in there. I definitely remember Super Mario RPG because that was a game that I had been wanting to like. Super Mario RPG is a game that when I was a kid. My best friend to this day, actually, the guy who made the NWR mobile site, our friendship was basically built around us just playing through Super Mario RPG over and over again.
Yeah, and my former roommate, actually, before I moved to where I am now, he actually sold me Super Mario RPG for like, I think it was $15 within 2 months of me meeting him because we met up in high school drama class. So I got that, and it's a good one. But I at this point, I would just prefer everything to show up on Virtual Console just so I can play it and not have to worry about cartridge pricing. Because at the end of the day, I'm paying somebody legitimately to access these games.
Or save batteries. That's been my issue. Like I think I have a copy of Yoshi's Island that the save battery's dead in it, and some of them they're like wonky. Like I'm actually kind of terrified to put in my copy of Chrono Trigger because I have. That's where I played through that game like twice back in the early 2000s. So
you can't do Game Plus if the save battery's toast.
Yeah. But I mean, there's ways to replace that. I should probably look into that one of these days.
Yeah.
But going back to the one guy who I went to high school with, I bought a couple of the games from him for $5 a piece. So I got Super Mario All Stars plus World for $5. I got Super Mario RPG for $5. And he probably had like 20, 25 games, and I probably like bought like 6 of them off him. And like a week or two later, he's just like, "Do you just want the rest of them?" And I'm like, "I don't really like. I don't really have the money to pay for them." And he's like, "No, you can just take them." So I was like, "Okay." I wound up we went and like I bought him ice cream one time at school. That was how I repaid him. But yeah, that worked out really nicely.
Yeah.
So I think that we've been doing this for like 45 minutes. I think that might do us for a show
Yeah.
of Nintendo World Rapport. I think it definitely got to the rapport part of it as we just kind of talked about
Yeah.
life, and video games, and collecting. Um, so as we look towards the fall for Nintendo systems, what were one Wii U game and one 3DS game? What games are you looking forward to the most?
For the, because I'm looking at this giant list of things that I pre-ordered E3 mainly just to have them. I think for Wii U, I'm gonna go off the board with Rodea the Sky Soldier from NIS.
Really?
I'm largely because of what it comes with, which is
The Wii version.
the Wii version. Technically, that counts, I think. And I've heard mixed things about the Wii U game and the 3DS game, but I bought them both, and well, but I want to see what that Wii version is about and see if it was worth waiting 6 years or however long that game was in development before it finally came out. And on the 3DS side, I'm gonna go with Legend of Legacy.
I'm really excited for Legend of Legacy. If only and I know, and you've probably heard more than I have. I've heard that the reports from the Japanese version are that it's a little disappointing.
It's a little disappointing, but they did say they're going to take some of that feedback into account for the game that we end up getting.
There's that part of me that thinks that it might turn out like Crimson Shroud, because Crimson Shroud is a game that it's part of like that level 5 what is it, the Guild series.
It was Guild 01, I think. For that.
Yeah. And from Japan, that was the one that like when they were announced for America, people were like, oh, like, because what it was, they weren't bringing over Weapon Shop Dale Masse.
Yeah, so we got
Liberation Maiden, Crimson Shroud, and the Arrow Porter. And the reports from Japan were that Crimson Shroud was terrible, and like the other games are pretty cool, but oh man, we're getting Crimson Shroud. But the localization for that game made it probably the best out of those 4 games.
Yeah,
definitely way better than Weapon Shop Dale Masse. I thought that game was terrible.
I'm not going to go and say that it was my game of the year or anything, although I think one of my NFR guys actually did. But but I enjoyed what I played of Masse. But yeah, Crimson Shroud had that one roadblock with the randomly dropping item.
Yeah, and I got stuck on that for a little bit, but I also, by the time I got to it, then I looked it up and it was pretty well known.
Yeah,
I know that whoever was reviewing it for us, I don't remember who it was, but they had a big issue with that, and we actually had to like reach out to a bunch of other reviewers to see what the hell was happening.
Yeah,
and I know, like, I think I remember like Jeremy Parrish was reviewing it, and he lucked out. He got that random drop the first battle he went into.
Yeah.
What else? But yeah. I hope that Legend of Legacy turns out like that. I'm super excited for that game because of the people behind it. You got Masato Kato, or Kato, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Kato, and he, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross.
He basically birthed cinema scenes in fucking video games, man. Like, cause he's responsible for the stuff in Ninja Gaiden, the NES one.
And I may be one of the 5 people on the planet that can say this. I enjoyed his work with Sands of Destruction on the DS.
Oh, I forgot about that game.
Yeah.
Was that like a strategy RPG, right?
More of an action RPG. Like the combat system in that was pretty close to what was Mario RPG style active.
Oh, maybe I'll have to try to see. I mean, it's probably hard as shit to find, but maybe I can stumble upon a GameStop nearby that might have it.
I've seen it turn up in some at a decent price and just in normal.
Yeah, maybe I'll poke around for that. That sounds like I think for some reason I feel like there was another game that came out around that time that was a strategy RPG, and I'm not super in it. Like, I like my Fire Emblem and my Advance Wars.
Yeah,
I don't really like a lot of other strategy RPGs.
I think the other one, Glory of Heracles, I think is the one you're thinking of.
Maybe it is. That had a really good localization. That was the 8-4 guys.
Right.
And I think did Kato also do the script for that? I feel like there was someone else who was involved with the story for that, but I don't remember.
That's a Glory of Heracles was an old series in Japan, but I just remember Sands of Destruction because it had Kato on the story and Mitsuda on the music.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I do remember the music for that game.
Even if it got executive metal to hell, I still had fun with it, but nobody else seems to remember that the game even exists.
Does it have who? No, it doesn't have. Although I know you can find Glory of Heracles for like dirt cheap.
Yeah. Although I think my local Walmart's still selling it for $40.
Oh, it was a dude who worked on the script for Final Fantasy VII worked on that.
Okay.
Because I was with the remake and everything, I've been nostalgic for a game that I think is pretty shitty with Final Fantasy VII. And I was looking up to see like who exactly was responsible for that game, and then came across this dude's name. He worked on a bunch of Final Fantasy stuff, and then also worked on Glory of Heracles, the DS game.
Yeah, I know they said that the FF7 remake was PS4 first, but I wonder what it would take to get that on the next Nintendo console, considering it will probably be on the next Nintendo console by the time that comes out.
Yeah, and yeah, it might be the next Nintendo console. That's how long that game's going to take to come out.
Nomura's developing it. It's going to take years.
Well, Nomura, didn't he fucking find out that he was directing it when they made the trailer?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like that was totally like they got caught with their pants down with announcing that the PS4 released the PC version, and they're like, we need to solve this, and that's what they came up with. And like, don't get me wrong, like as someone who my issues with Final Fantasy VII are more that I think that game is a relic of 1997 and not in a good way. Like I just don't think it holds up to modern standards at all. I think the story, it's typical kind of Final Fantasy batshit craziness, but like the characters are kind of fun, the story's kind of fun. Like I think the remake could make that a really fun game. I just don't think that Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1, as it stands right now, is a very fun game. I think that pretty much every other Final Fantasy game of that era is better.
I'm just wondering what they will do to that game to make it so that it annoys the original Final Fantasy VII fan base. Because no matter if they play it straight, just bring everything from 97 over to 2021 or whatever, they're going to annoy a lot of people because those games don't age well, and PS1 RPGs especially don't age well. But if they do any changes to try and modernize it, they're going to annoy all the old fans.
Although actually, Austin Parkin, that's one of your NFR guys, is it
right?
Not? He made a point that apparently Adam Boyes from Sony made a comment that he knew about the Final Fantasy VII remake a year ago.
Yeah.
So Square Enix confirmed trolled the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, I
think that's worse, actually.
Yeah. Now, because I heard this was, I know Level 5 is teasing that they've had a PS4 project in development. I wonder, could the FF7 remake be it?
That would be smart, because I think that Level 5's a reliable developer.
Yeah. It's either, like, they're doing the grunt work on it, either that, or they may have been brought in for Dragon Quest
11. Yeah, that could be it, too.
But all I know is Sony's E3 caused me to get a really big haircut. So,
yeah.
Pro tip: don't bet against anything this year, because between Last Guardian coming back, Shenmue 3,
Final Fantasy 7, even Zero Escape 3,
Dragon Quest in 24 hours. At this point, Gabe Newell, you're up.
Yeah, it's Half-Life 3 is getting announced in the fall. It's probably coming to the Vive. What other crazy thing? Oh, well, I know. But at the end of this all, there still won't be a Metroid game.
I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Maybe Nintendo and Sony talked like a year ago, or Nintendo and Square Enix were talking. Maybe they were talking about Dragon Quest, and it came up about how like Nintendo was like, so what's going on with Final Fantasy VII? And like this is like back in January, and like Square Enix is just giggling, being like, "We fucked with everyone. It's so funny, biggest prank ever." And Nintendo's like, "Just you wait. We're gonna one up you guys at E3." Where it's gonna be like, "Oh, there's no Metroid game," and then it turns out that Federation Force just has an entire mode in it that's just like a traditional Metroid game.
Oh God, because God help me, what what they presented, if it gets cleaned up, that may be my game of the year next year. I don't know, but
I'm Federation Force. Or
yeah,
are you really that high on it, or
I'm that high
confused?
on the developer, and I know that and I don't
And
have
Tanabe's guiding it. Tanabe, I
yeah
was looking at his track record in recent memory. Dude doesn't really deliver a subpar game.
yeah, and maybe I'm crazy, but anything that annoys the Metroid fan base that much, that's probably in my weakness.
Yeah. I
Me and
mean, yeah.
Metroid don't get along.
I've got an outrageous amount of faith um, in next level games to deliver and make a good game, because they haven't let me down. And I think, well, they haven't let me down when they work with Nintendo.
Yeah.
But even still, like I think that Spider-Man Friend or Foe, which is a game that a lot of people shit upon, that was actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
And their Captain America game, not bad.
Yeah, and when they have Nintendo on them, they do really good things,
Yeah.
like Luigi's Mansion.
And Punch Out was incredible. The Strikers games, I think, are the best Mario sports games of all time.
Yeah.
Like they just make good video games. So having Tanabe working with Next Level Games, I think that Federation Force, no matter what happens, will be a really fun game. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be that much of a Metroid game.
And you know what? Maybe Nintendo's seeing what I'm seeing, that so many people are making games in that Metroid style now, that they can do something different with Metroid, because that itch is being scratched by things like Axiom Verge, which we found out is apparently coming to Wii U.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they can just have Samus be a playable character in Axiom Verge.
You know what? I bet you a lot of people would enjoy that.
Yeah. And probably Tom Happ, developer of the game, might be flattered. Like, that might be really cool.
Well, then the port wouldn't happen because his head would explode.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a show. I think we said it was going to be a show 20 minutes ago, and it kept on going. Train kept rolling all night long. Thank you very much for joining me, Donald. It was a lot of fun. And maybe down the road, after we get some more guests on, then we can start bringing people back for repeats. This is Nintendo World Rapport. I'm your host, Neal Ronaghan. Stay tuned next week around the same time. We'll have Jules watch them from Renegade Kid talking about Mutant Mud Super Challenge. I'll probably bug him about Treasure Knots. Maybe like pitch Bomb Monkey 2. I don't know. It'll probably just evolve into me asking him about the old days at Acclaim, though. So if you want to hear me like ask a guy who worked on South Park Chef's Love Shack all about South Park Chef's Love Shack, then stay tuned next week on Nintendo World Rapport. And we'll also have some other stuff. We might have, well, at least as far as stuff that's being scheduled in the works, I might as well tease. We'll probably have someone from the developers of Freedom Planet on in the next couple weeks. And then I think the show after next will be Justin Berube of Nintendo World Report's features editor fame. He'll be on. So stay tuned to that. It should be pretty cool. And if you happen to be a Wii U or 3DS indie developer and you would like to be on the show, let me know in the comments or something. I don't know. And feedback, questions, comments, etc., etc. Let us know in the comments, because we're doing a shitty job. We won't know unless you call us out in a polite way. If you call us out in a douchebag way, we probably won't listen. So thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.